Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Breeze, Breezeway Productions The Breeze, where we continue our coverage of this year's Slamdance Film Festival. And we're excited to bring you an amazing documentarian filmmaker coming to us with her official selection for the 2021 festival called Bad Attitude, The Art of Spain Rodriguez. How are you, Susan Stern?
I am doing well. It's nice to be here, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Tell me a little bit about the documentary that's being showcased this year.
Bad Attitude, The Art of Spain Rodriguez is about the underground cartoonist Spain Rodriguez, who was my husband. He was a pioneer in underground comics. A lot of people don't know underground comics were the movement in the 1960s that made comics an adult art form. You know, we're talking sex, drugs, and rock and roll,
Yeah.
basically. Also politics, left-wing politics. But what people don't know is that this movement really revolutionized comics in the United States and around the world and led to the graphic novels that we have today.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. You went through a good history of his life from his early years. He grew up in Buffalo,
Yes.
in Buffalo, New York, and that he was kind of a renegade in a way, like a leather jacket wearing, biker riding, ruffian type. And then he went into the comic industry where he was able to create these very vibrant comics and very controversial comics, so to say. Let's talk about the early years first, when he was really in the rough types. You're able to interview a lot of the biker gang that he rolled with. What was that experience like working with some of those bikers?
Yes, Spain called himself the Minister of Propaganda for the Road Vultures Motorcycle Club. And they were founded around the same time as the Hells Angels were founded, but they were founded in Western New York. And I was lucky not only to be able to interview some of the members of the Road Vultures, a couple of
Mhm.
them died actually after I interviewed them, but I was able to interview one of the cops that tangled with the Road Vultures. So that's a really interesting history of kind of tough white guys in the early 60s. And a lot of these guys may seem a lot like what we see in the Proud Boys sort of world. And what's interesting in the film is you see Spain, who was a left wing guy, really kind of doing what we would call now anti racist work with the Road Vultures.
Yeah, that was interesting. You came up very upfront with a very graphic story of an experience that he had with them, which was quite revealing when they all were in a park and then ganged up on said individual. So that was eye opening.
That was actually even earlier. That wasn't the road. I see why you would think, but
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
another incident that happened when he was 14 years old, very young, that had to do with what was called in the days rough trade.
Yeah.
But I didn't pull any punches in this film. This
You did
film
not.
is full of
You
a
did
lot of
not.
controversial stuff, a lot of controversial art. I'm hoping people will want to talk when they walk out of their living room to their kitchen after seeing the film.
Yeah, that's what I love about Slamdance is a lot of their films aren't afraid to go that extra mile to showcase the truth and tell the hard story. And the artist that's being showcased here basically went that extra mile as well, so they could see that it would be a good fit. And then he moved on towards the village when he started creating what was considered propaganda, or that's what some people thought, very, very left wing type comic books that were controversial. What was that experience like in New York City when he was putting out the comic books in that community?
Yeah, that's a really fun part of the film because
Yeah.
again, we see New York City, the village,
Yeah.
in the 60s. A lot of people, there was stuff we used there, and people said, no, wait, didn't that happen in San Francisco? But no, no, that happened in New York. People don't, the whole hippie movement and a lot of political stuff people associate with the 60s in San Francisco, they don't know the New York story. Well, we did the New York story. We got a lot of great archival footage of what was going on then, not only the very beginning of underground comics, which again people think started in San Francisco with Robert
Mhm.
Crumb, but actually started in New York City with the East Village Other. So
Yeah.
it's really fun to have that. We have great music from the Fugs, and
Yeah.
wonderful people like Art Spiegelman, who of course won the Pulitzer Prize for Mouse,
Mhm.
talking about how underground comics was an art form and
Yeah.
was did something in comics that had never been done before.
Yeah, and that we can look at him as as an inspiration to many other comic writers that are introduced also in your documentary. How were you able to bring the other well-known comic writers or animators into your documentary that he helped inspire?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, the film is really full of a lot of the luminaries in comics from the underground scene, but also some new people. It was really
Yeah,
wonderful to find Ed Piskor, who's really, you mentioned reading, I think, the X-Men, or
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people are familiar with that. Ed
Mhm.
Piskor is a younger artist now who is doing stuff with the X-Men. He also did the Hip Hop Family album, which is a really cool series of comics. And he was inspired by Spain, and he talks about a younger generation of artists that was inspired by Spain's work.
Yeah. You also felt very comfortable talking about his promiscuity with people throughout his life. Since you obviously were married to him, and then he was just talking about a lot of the women that have been in and out of his life. How did that affect you while you were living through that?
Yeah, well, he wasn't. You do see girlfriends before me. Okay, I'm going to say Alex. Those women were all before me. You know,
Okay. So that wasn't during the same time. He just,
wasn't during
when I was, yeah,
it
when I was
wasn't
watching
during
it,
the same
he
time.
was, okay.
Um, he was actually kind of, I gotta say, he was into monogamy once he was married. That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
But he didn't settle down until he was about 40. And he definitely was a ladies' man before that. He had lots of girlfriends, and that's detailed.
Yeah.
And we have this sequence I like very much where two of his prior girlfriends and myself, we're all standing there, and we're not young anymore, but we're holding the naked pictures that he made of us when we were young.
Mhm. Yeah, and that he had this allure to a lot of the people in his life that people were attracted to. You showcase that of why people were so drawn to him with his personality, and that how it reflected in his work with things that he wasn't able to communicate, maybe verbally but artistically. And you showcase that through his artwork, which was very graphic. But it started a revolution for how animators are working to this day. I know that when I was growing up, the animators that I watched were the people that made like Rocko's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy. And that when I watch that now, I'm like, I cannot believe that I actually watched that when I was growing up. It's so psychedelic, off the walls, LSD trip insanity. And I guess, it took that type of generation and those types of people to, I guess, help grow our generation. So it was the same for your husband. And so I'm curious, what made you come to the title of Bad Attitude when you were really looking at what you should name this whole documentary?
And that's a good question, but I'm going to say Ren and Stimpy. I
Yeah.
forgot about Ren and Stimpy. My daughter watched Ren and Stimpy. That was, well, now people are using the word sick to mean that was good, but that show was sick. I mean, honestly, sick.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I try to be a good person. Like we're all trying to be good people these days. I know that. I'm watching, I'm trying to be a good person, but sometimes I just want to be bad. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be bad. I don't want to be a good person. I want to have a little fun. I want to be bad. And
yeah.
Spain was like that. He was bad. Um, and I think we all need a little bit of that now. I mean, he wasn't, he liked to draw. He was heterosexual. He was attracted to women. He liked to draw scantily clad women, but he wasn't a sexual harasser, and he was a
Mhm.
good dad. And, I feel like so much these days we talk about the flip side of that. We'll talk about people who, um, oh, they did such great work, but it turns out they were like sleaze bags.
Yeah,
Well, Spain did some work that was kind of, controversial, sexy, erotic, but he was like a good guy. He was like a good human being.
yeah.
I guess that's what I'm playing with the idea of bad attitude. He didn't want to be, there was no goody two shoes.
Yeah, you showcased him the way that he is, and that the people saw him in one light, you saw him in another, but wanted to tell the whole story, the good and the bad, and then to feature his legacy for the creation that he did with his artwork. I really particularly love the one. There's a guy that was in it that did a mural in Buffalo. with respect to him, and then he ends up getting arrested, and then you have that shot of what it looks like. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and that just shows how he was able to influence a generation of animators and creators. Um, how are you doing in closing? Like after you have this piece that's created, and you're able to watch it in its entirety. Did you really reflect on it and get emotional when you showcase it to audiences because it's so personal to you?
Yeah, I think, when you make a film, you end up watching it like 152 times.
Right,
You're like always fixing it, and you're just like, oh God, I can't stand to watch this anymore. But
right.
there's always a point where I don't want too much of a spoiler, but Spain was very sick, and I tell the story about him not wanting to talk about dying ever. So we never talked about dying. But, one night he woke up at 3 a.m. and said, I'm dying and they're after me about my deadlines. And he got out of bed and he went to work. That is the point that always gets me, and that you and any other creative people or anyone who's trying to get a job done can relate to, that just getting up out of bed and getting the job done. Um, that always
And
moves me.
everything. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I very much enjoyed watching you chronicle his life and the experience, and it was an enjoyable watch. And may his legacy live on through his work and inspire the future generations of animators. And I hope other people are able to check it out. It's at the Slamdance Film Festival, which is starting this Friday, running from the 12th to the 26th. $10. 100 plus films that can be seen, online pass and a digital film portal that's super easy to use. So definitely check that out. In closing, is there anything that you'd like to say to the Slamdance Film Festival?
Just that, there's independent films at Slamdance. That's kind of getting rarer and rarer, I think, as some of the big platforms have moved in and financed films. And these are
Yeah.
a lot of films by young people, a lot of first films, and it's fresh.
It is. It is. It's fresh and raw and exciting, interesting and emotional. And I loved watching it. So I want to thank you for coming on The Breeze today to talk about the documentary. And definitely stay tuned for more interviews that are coming out for the 2021 Slamdance Film Festival. So again, Susan Stern, thank you so much for joining us.